it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday afternoon here on Kobold Press. The tech goblins are, they're working against me today, but so far, Sarah and I have been able to stomp them down. So so far, so good. I'm excited to be back for a very exciting Kobold Chats because we have officially launched the Kickstarter that for the last few weeks we have been talking about. Campaign Builder Cities and Towns is officially out there. Oh, nope, I have to spell it right. There is a link there in chat that'll take you over to the Kickstarter. We are some pretty lucky kobolds in that we met the goal within the first hour of release on Monday, which means everything from here on out is just extra, y'all. It's just extra. It's just extra stuff. And we are hitting those stretch goals pretty much every day. I think we're on track to hit another one today. I'm actually pretty excited about the last announcement that came out from the stretch goal, which is the city character sheet. Very cool, y'all. Very cool to have like all of your city stats like laid out on a sheet. Now that is a handy thing. So click that link, go check it out. And you haven't already backed it, maybe give it a consideration. If you're totally not sure, well, you can hit YouTube and watch these videos. And over the last few weeks, we will convince you that you need to get this book, especially if you are a GM running homebrew campaigns. But that's why we're here today, is to keep talking about like what is inside of this book. I think honestly, since I have started at Kobold Press, this is the one book I've been able to spill the most information about, like what's on the inside of any book that has been on Kickstarter since I started at Kobold Press. So like, I'm actually kind of giddy to get every time I get to like crack it open a little bit. So I welcome Sarah Madsen back to Kobold Chats today. Sarah's joined us a few times, but today I'm really excited for this topic. I actually said it the other night in chat, and everybody was like, "Ooh, cool topic. Ooh, I wonder what that's about." So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, just in case people don't know who you are, and then we'll dive into a little bit more questions.
I'm Sarah Madsen. I am a freelance tabletop RPG designer and writer, and I do a ton of work for Kobold Press and love it every time. And was super duper excited to be on the Cities and Towns. Did quite a good chunk of stuff for this. So yeah, I got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think the last time we had you on was for our Women's Month, our little Women's Month gathering, which was a really cool chat. Yeah, so glad to have you back. Glad to have you on this project because we put out a lot of books, everybody, if you didn't know. Kobold Press publishes a lot of stuff. But this one I think is the most unique I've seen since I've come in. And I say that because it feels not just like a reference guide, but it feels like a toolbox. And I think there's a difference, right? The toolbox is really like all the things you need to build whatever your mind can come up with versus this kind of reference manual of how to do something. And so why don't you let everybody know what the many ways you contributed to the book? But we'll tell you the one we're going to like dive deep into today, I guess at the end. So we'll save that one for last.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I contributed to a bunch of sections and I can just list them off real quick.
Yes.
I talked a bit about, talking about the primary function of a city and how that impacts city planning, as well as trade goods. Like if your city has trade, because every city has trade goods, and how that affects things, and the various ways you could build a city around that. The architecture of a city, whether it's old or new, or was built on ruins or as a brand new place, and how that affects the way things look and are laid out. And then I talked a bit about the districts. I personally looked at the market district and the guard district and how to design those so that they are interesting and engaging for your players.
Cool.
I think the one we're going to talk about today is the biggest one I did, which is the impact of magic on a city. So
I think this is really super important because I imagine that section on the importance of cities talks a little bit about how cities influence everything else around them. But those cities are usually often influenced by the world around them. What is like the bigger picture, or what are the larger powers at play? So tell us a little bit about what we can expect out of this impact of magic on your city like section.
So when I got into this, I really sort of laid it out with three main ways that the magic can affect your city. The first one was if you are in a high magic setting and magic is proliferates everything. If it's highly available and everybody in your city can use it or does use it in one way or another for their life, in their daily needs, in the way that like utilities and things like that, all how that would affect things and how it changes the way a city is run. And then I talked a little bit about if magic is limited, so it exists, but maybe it's hard to use, or you need to go to school to figure out how to learn how to use it, that sort of thing. And then the idea of magic existing in one way or another, but it's restricted. So only the elite are allowed or able to use it. And how that sort of trickles down into, you know, how things look at the top level and then how things look at the bottom, based on the proliferation of it in your city.
In your city, so. Yeah. Okay, that's very important. So really, like, what is magic's place? You said prevalence, which I think is actually the perfect word, right? What is its prevalence in the world or in the city, and how does that used to really like structure, like you said, everything? Like, I mean, the moment you say, okay, magic can be used up here, but not here in the populace, now you're talking about like an economic impact.
Yes,
almost immediately.
Yep, and it's everything from, you know, leisure to the health of a city. So like if you have magic, but you know, only the elite use it, then you know the elite are probably free from disease and, you know, death and things like that aren't as prevalent, as opposed to like healthcare for the lower classes kind of thing, where you have magic, you know, versus having magic available for everybody, where the temples or, you know, even just clinics that are available for everybody, that pretty much can eliminate things like plague and you know, illness and other things. So it changes the way a society functions and the way a city has to run if you just infuse that much more magic into your city.
Right.
And it can cause,
no,
I was just gonna say, it can cause a lot of strife when like the elite have it and the lower classes don't. So it's very ripe for interesting storytelling. So
yeah, and then even think about the opposite, where like maybe you find that magic is actually frowned upon. It's not readily available. And it's actually like considered like not okay or not civil society.
Taboo.
Yeah, taboo in certain ways to do magic, which means you've actually put magic as a piece of leverage almost in like in politics and society. That's really, really interesting and a great way to think about that too, and probably something we don't think about when we like build the city. Like the moment they walk through those gates, what is their status on magic, right?
Right.
Very, very cool. Now I love this topic here, and it's kind of at the front of what you've written. Welcome in, Crit Witch, which is magic's purpose. Magic's purpose, and I think that's huge. That's almost on a world building scale to some degree. But in terms of the city itself, it affects not only the politics and the people, the classes of people, but like you say here, it can affect technology. It can affect right, efficiency of things, worship, war, right? Societies that do, and then cities that don't have magic probably suffer a lot more. So that's very, very cool. Man, this is cool. Now, talk to me. You're talking about cities where magic is everywhere, where magic is readily available in multiple ways. And you have a lot. I get the sneak peek of the Word document, everybody. I'm seeing here that you have a lot of kind of headers that break this down of like, what does that mean in terms of transportation and utilities and food and sanitation and healthcare. Do you want to talk a little bit about that piece of things?
Sure. This I found to be really interesting because we, you know, a lot of times in D&D, I mean, magic exists, right? Unless you're specifically running a very low magic setting, magic exists. And the idea that people would not use that to better their everyday lives is always something that sort of struck me as sort of hard to believe. Like if you can mage hand something, or if you can prestidigitation something clean, like how does that affect the flow of your everyday life if you're not having to slave over like a thing full of dishes at the end of the day? And when I was looking at, you know, the idea of magic being everywhere in a city, I really like sat down and thought through like, what are all the ways in which a civilization that develops with magic, instead of having to rely on technology or rely on manual labor, if you have magic that can ease or change these, everyday functions, how would that look? So yeah, I talked, about transportation. So like,
Yeah.
how would that change the way a city is laid out if you can teleport from one side of the city to the other, or if
mage hands your trains from one end to the other.
right, or like if you have magical carriages that don't require horses, like how, because having horses in a city, I love horses, but they make a mess and they require a lot of space to take care of them, and like how would that change things? Utilities like trash collection and sewage, things like that. If you have, trundling golems that wander the city and consume the trash as they find it,
you don't have a trash problem.
Right. You don't have a trash problem. You have less disease. You have less vermin. And so that, completely changes that.
You're right. It's so interesting. It's like a top-down system.
Right.
Like if magic is prevalent or vice versa, it affects everything underneath it in terms of the culture of the city itself and the town. Woo, love that. All right, let's see. I'm scrolling here to make sure I don't miss anything. So the next thing that popped up that I think is really, really important is ancient and forgotten magics, which I think is a little different than, say, a city that might have limited magic or restricted magic.
Yeah, so I played around with this idea a little bit in this chapter, because I had been actually working on sort of the age of a city and the architecture of a city, and how like, the age of a city can change the way it looks and the way it's developed, and are there ruins that things are built on top of? And I kind of have this idea of like, so you might have come up with all of this magic and you've developed, or not, like you may have restricted it to your elite, but if there was a civilization that was here before that, then fell and you built on top of, and there's, ruins and remnants, and magic may be one of those things that sticks around. So there may be elements of the city that had been built in before that were forgotten, or, we know it exists. It's a system, like maybe it's a sewer system, or, a travel, whatever, but the people who use it don't really know necessarily where it came from, what it is, how exactly it works. And I'm sure, people probably study it, but we don't always get the answers we're looking for. And the fact that, there might be this old magic that has been, lost and refound within these civilizations and stuff is interesting. So.
Yeah, it's almost like you restricted all you want, but you're sitting on top of something that is like, I love that. That may even bring back new magics or forgotten, like you said, forgotten magics.
Yep.
Love that. Yes. Great example there in chat about kobolds kind of lurking and rebuilding their great design as they summon it. Now, did you have some thoughts when it comes to kind of determining the level of magic in your cities? That's always hard. It's like, oh, I want my players to be able to do everything, but I really like this idea of a kind of checks and balance system where maybe magic can't be used at the regular.
So I think for me, when I was kind of looking at determining the level of magic in a city, and it's like you said, it can be so many things, and you can have so much, and you kind of want to shove it all in there, but kind of looking at things. And I'm sure that you've probably heard this phrase before on Kobold chats, with the concept of like, where is the adventure? Yes. Where is the intrigue? What, like, if everything runs smoothly all the time and everything is great, then there's not necessarily anything interesting. I mean, it might be interesting for a minute, but then you're like, okay, and it becomes background noise. So I really like the idea of maybe having a high magic setting, and then an element of that setting stops working for some reason, like something that you've been relying on this whole time.
Yeah.
That could be really interesting. And it kind of flips things on its head, because the idea of magic belonging to the elite and being really restricted is not something that's new, right? And that's a fun trope to play with, but it's definitely been trod before. But the idea of having a city that has relied on this system for a long time, and then for some reason it's not functioning as it should anymore, And that could be a very, really interesting, fun thing for your players to sort of grab onto and like have a purpose. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I see here, I know you can't see, but I see some pretty sweet tables. And y'all know I'm a bit of a table fanatic. I love a good table. To help you,
mhm.
if you know the creative gears are just not turning, there's always a table that gets them turning, which is why I love them so much. So a nice table here, at least for this section as well, to kind of to add to that. I'm looking here now. Is there a particular section that you wrote in terms of this section right here of Impact of Magic that you really it's kind of your gold star section that you're like, this is an idea that everybody needs to know about?
Oh boy. Oh gosh. Um, hmm. Mm. Well, I mean, talking about this table, I really kind of liked creating this table. I don't know if we
Yeah,
want to talk about it
yeah,
yet.
we can. I think we could talk about it at least. Well, we don't have to show it to you. I'm not allowed to show you anything, but they said I could talk about it. So
All right. So this table I wrote is basically so that if you're trying to develop a city and you want some inspiration, you can roll, as you do, on the table, and it gives you a prevalence. So like you can roll to see, you know, if this feature, it gives you a magical feature, and then it gives you a prevalence. And you can roll to see if it's everywhere or if it's limited or if it's restricted. But then the features are specific things so that you can just easily pull them out and drop them in. So like something like the street lights are being powered by continual flame, right? Like that's something simple that you can just yank out and stick in to your campaign. But things like if you have something restricted magic item is so if only the elite are using it, something like there is a matchmaker that provides insights and visions of your true love for an extravagant fee, but they have never been wrong. So, and you just stick that in there, and it can be an element of your city and your setting that like maybe only the elite can get it because it's real expensive. Or, you know, you can imagine somebody who's, you know, less of means and they are saving up and for like their whole childhood saving up so they can go see the matchmaker and find out who they're supposed to marry.
I love
So
that.
I like this table a lot. So hopefully
Well,
it's very useful.
we're gonna roll on this table here in just a second because you all know that these are special Kobold chats over the next couple weeks where you are all helping build a city, and we're gonna add magic into this city that we've started. But before that, you know, this is a really great question. I can tell you that there is not a table in necessarily a way to make life in a city worse or harder, but I bet that's a really great talking point or topic, which is like, you know, magic can make everything a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts on how it makes things harder when there's just excess magic?
Well, so it's always an interesting idea because I think you can treat magic sort of the same way that we treat technology these days,
Oh, okay.
where, you know, there are a lot of things that we can do now that, you know, we couldn't do 100 years ago because of computers and the internet and phone and travel and everything else. And it's made a lot of things a lot easier, but it's caused a lot of complications as well. So sort of drawing on those real life inspirations, and when you're looking at the difficulties that magic might cause in your city, I think would be fun.
Yeah, I think that's a real. I mean, I just think about it alone. If everybody can use magic, how do you do things like? How do you regulate it? I think that's actually where the hard
Right.
part is like, how do you regulate something that's so readily available? It is the technology conundrum, right? How do we
Yeah.
regulate X, Y, and Z when X, Y, and Z is at the touch of a fingertip in a piece of technology in our pocket?
Right.
You know, and so I think that, yeah, that's really that's a really interesting way to kind of look at that.
Well, and for sure.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, so one of the things I talk about in my thing is the idea of public safety, right? The, you know, police and the city watch and things like that. And how do they handle, if they're in a high magic setting, they probably are equipped, right, to deal with that sort of thing. But with more power can potentially come more corruption, and all of those problems just sort of snowball. So,
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. And this is interesting too. Do you have opinions about maybe why magic does not work inside of a part of the city? So, any thoughts on
Ooh.
like if we wanted to make a city that probably regulates magic away, or the unuse of it in certain areas. It's a really interesting idea.
Does not work in a certain part of the city. Well, I guess there's questions, right? If there's magic that's not working in a part of the city, is it on purpose or is it not on purpose? Is there a part of the city that it just doesn't work, or has it been warded against magic so that the citizens can't use it here?
Or specific magics, like nobody wants necromancy in the middle of their city.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? Like, so maybe it's like a non, like there's just a post that's like no necromancy. But really, you know, those kinds of restrictions and regulations also lend themselves to other aspects of a city. Like now you're talking about a black market. Because wherever you tell people not to do something, you know that there's got to be the people that go and do it, right? So like, where is this necromantic like black market of this city that sells again, damn the man, and they do it anyways, right? And what problems come with that? I think that's really really interesting. So enchantment, interesting. We've got some interesting. Wild magic areas would make life in a city so much worse. So maybe it's a wild magic ban. No wild magic while inside city walls, right? Enchantment magic is usually illegal on your high magic settings. I mean, if you can enchant something at a really high level, there's a lot of really powerful things that can be done. Especially, and you know, I think when we look at it on a cityscape, when you're playing with 5 people that are in the middle of a dungeon, the stakes for them of, say, I don't know, accidentally setting off a massive fireball is only for themselves.
Right.
Okay? The stakes for them setting off a fireball in the middle of a town or a city is much higher, because now you're talking about hundreds of people injured. Lots of collateral damage. The city guard or watch is definitely getting involved. Like, that's a whole other. It's actually, the setting itself plays so much in terms of where the importance around magic lies, and I think that's actually really really interesting.
Well, if you think about the idea too of like charm magic, like if everybody has the ability to like cast charm spells and get people to do what they want, like where do you draw the lines on the laws of charm for coercion and negotiation, and or if some people have the ability to cast charm and others don't, you know, it creates a power imbalance that can be very interesting.
Right, absolutely. Great idea. You know what, if magic in the city doesn't work, maybe it's a lich below siphoning all of it away.
There we go.
There you go. Problem solved. No necromancy, just put a lich under the city. Nice. All right, very cool. I love this has been a very cool bit of like topic of conversation. Yeah. That's a thought. Don't try to charm the judge in the courtroom. Maybe just legal systems have a non-magic. You know, isn't that what they do in World of Darkness with vampires, right? Elysium is a place where vampires are not allowed to use their powers against other kindred, right? It's like a free power space. You have to show up and just be who you are. Yeah, you gotta just be the best version of you that you can be as a corrupt little kindred. And so, you know, that's actually a really interesting ideas. Like, places of business and legal activity require that no magic can be used on either side of the courtroom, or like, you know, those kind of things actually create balance and not just imbalance. And balance is just as important as the imbalance, because imbalance is great for conflict, but what are we trying to get back to? What does balance look like that we're imbalanced from? And I think that's also really important in design as well. A magic room that has an instantly zaps them for anybody that casts a spell. Yeah. All right, so we have been building this city, and chat, continue coming along with questions if you have some more. But I'm going to move us over to actually some of this, like putting some of these ideas, these really great ideas, and this really important aspect of city building, which is where is magic involved in all of it, into the city that we've been building. Now, I'm going to be honest, Sarah, we've not named our city. I know we've not named it yet, but I thought maybe we'd do that at the end, because I'm horrible at naming things, which is, I'm just horrible at it. But this book, everybody, is full of great tables for naming stuff. But we have gone through and we've done kind of 2 big aspects of our city. We built some guilds, specifically Craftsman Guilds. So we know that there's like a kind of an underlying feel of craftsmen. Specifically, we have a group of the Honorable Society of Leatherworkers, the Solemn Order of Malsters, and the Steadfast Fellowship of the Masons. These are the Craftsman Guilds that came up out of our like guild roll experience. But last time we put together some shops, because guilds are great, but you got to sell your wares. So we decided this is probably some kind of trade city. Because of all of the craftsmen and the shops and things that are popping up. There's got to be some trade going on here. So we have keys, bugbears, and bronze feathers. The Hermit's Chalice and the Groggy Grig are the 3 local shops that we got put together. And then we also had an order. Now, the order we decided was a little different than these guilds. This is an order of clerics, actually. So we have the Order of the Platinum Torch, which is the local cleric order as well. So these are some of the things that we've kind of put into place. I feel like, we don't have any characters yet because there's nobody playing in this campaign that we're putting together. So this is kind of where we are. We don't have a lot of structure. We don't really know what the political structure is. And we've decided that as things kind of pop up, and if it feels right, then that's kind of what we go with. But right now we're looking at this possible trade city. We know it's got a mine nearby because we have masons. So there's some kind of like stone working happening. We have maltsters and leather workers as well. So pretty standard Craftsman Guild. Other than the masons, we don't need a lot of localized stuff, I guess. So we are looking to add magic to this city, and I think we need to roll off this table that you made.
All right.
I think we need to roll off this table that you made because I think it's really, really cool. So the question is, so walk me through it here. So we've got magical features in a city by prevalence. Really super important. So we're going to go ahead and establish there is some magic in the city. We haven't really established how much. Maybe these will give us that answer because they may require us to have like a lot of magic. Who knows?
All right.
Okay, so how do we do this? So where do we start?
So it's split up. I have it split up so you can either roll if you know for sure that like your city has magic everywhere, you can roll on a d10, and that first set of 10 you can roll and you know for a fact that it's everywhere. Or you can roll a d100 and it'll give you one of these features, and it can be something that's like, well, everybody has this, or it could be something that's restricted.
Oh, I love it. No, we're going with a d100. Y'all know I'm a chaos monster, so give me the random roll. Okay, I'm gonna roll this d100. I can't believe it. I rolled a d100 and got a 6. Wow. Can you believe that? That's so crazy. So, everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere. This table says everywhere is a prevalence. Incinerator golems patrol the streets in tight circuits, collecting and consuming the city's trash. I love this. Yeah, you made this example earlier. I can't believe it was the one that came up. I love this. So I'm just actually going to just kind of quick copy this text over to our roll 20. And I'm going to add, I think we need a new handout labeled Magic in the City. And we will start by making this note that there are incinerator golems that clearly are allowed to be here. Now the question is, are they native or did we bring these incinerator golems in to do this job? Is it a job? Are they completely content because they get to eat all day? It's like a deal.
All the free trash you can ever desire.
All we ask is that you only eat trash and not people. So
yes, please don't consume any bodies you find. That's a separate issue. So when I was thinking of it, when I wrote it originally, I was thinking that it was probably something crafted by like a local Tinkers Guild or something like that. But if we're going with something where they're more sentient golems, that could be interesting because that raises a whole other bunch of questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do have these masons and we do also have these clerics. Maybe they are involved in some way, or maybe it's time for us just to have another group, add a new group of people that like control these incinerator golems, or bring them to life. So we could add a Tinkerer's Guild. We don't know a whole lot about them yet, but I can always pull up. I bet you I can pull up the roll tables for those. We can always go back and add them. Because I no doubt in my mind that there's a Tinkerer's Guild somewhere.
In the guild chapter.
In the guild chapter that I've got stored away. I gotta find it. So many things in this folder of Kobold Press. Wait, did I find it? I did. Oh, no. Well, no, this is the shop one. Okay, I'm close. I'm so close.
So close.
That means that, here we go.
I believe in you.
I got it. I found it. All right, let me pop it open. Hopefully it will not hate this PDF. Okay, so yeah, so we've got this Tinkerers Guild that actually like constructs and keeps these incinerator golems.
It maintains them.
Yeah. I love this. They patrol the streets. So wonderful. Yeah, they patrol the streets in tight circuits, collecting and consuming the city's trash. So we know that, like, these tinkerers have to be at least somewhat magically inclined, and that magic has to be made available. It could be said that, you know, magic is only used for craft purposes. That you can't just, like, use magic, that it has to be for the focus of, you know, whatever your business does or whatever the good is. Okay. So, I don't know. We'll roll up a quick tinkerer option. What does it say here? Craft Guild name generator. I don't have to deal with their portfolio because we already said that they were tinkerers. So, yeah, I guess I could roll this up really quick. Adjective and noun is what I need. So, a D12 and a D12. Let's do this. D12 number 1 says a 1. I'm rolling really low today. And a 4. 1 and a 4. 1, they are the Honorable Association of Tinkerers.
The Honorable Association of Tinkerers. Correct. I love it.
They are the Honorable Association of Tinkerers. So I'm going to go ahead and just add another guild here, guys, because we just added one. Yeah. The Honorable. Yeah, I feel like they definitely they thought it sounded really cool.
Right.
And it definitely doesn't. It's definitely not as cool as, like, you know, the Order of the Platinum Torch or,
yes.
or you know, the Solemn Order of the Malsters. They're just the Honorable Association of Tinkerers. It's okay. But they seem to be important to the city structure and obviously seem to be magical in some way. Love them. All right, let's go ahead. I'd like to roll more. What are the stakes of magic here in the city? Because I'm a chaos monster. So let's do it again. Let's see if I can get above a 6 on a D100, y'all. I got a 58.
58.
A 58. What are we looking at for a 58? Okay. The local magic school hosts monthly seminars for those interested in learning more about the arcane arts. Well, that makes sense. If it is a city that is built around trade and crafting, everybody that lives there needs to be part of the ecosystem.
Right.
So maybe this is one of those things that, like, keeps the city strong, is that everybody has like a trade, basically. They all have a trade. That's very cool. Love that. Other thoughts, especially when you were writing it, like what that looks like or how that might affect the city?
Well, I see that in all sorts of different ways, but excuse me.
No worries.
For this, I don't know. I kind of see it like learning how to make engraving work for you, like you know, things like that.
Yeah, they're like 101 series, not really like a college. Yeah,
like where you can have like the real basic stuff for somebody who's just coming into the business and is like, well, I want to learn how to, you know, boost my business with my.
I bet the local factions are really behind this.
Right.
A lot, right? Because, you know, the more young lads that are like, I think I want to be a mason, is the more dudes they have chunking away at rock in the nearby mine. You know what I mean? So, I say dudes, it could be ladies or folk, people, kobolds, you know, whatever. But I think that's very, very interesting. Yeah, it's kind of it's like kindling the fire in people. It's kind of like a bachelor's program.
Right. Yeah. Or like I kind of picture it as like too, like when you can take like advanced candle making, like at your near, like, but like for your specific, you know, like if you have like a haberdashery, like how would you know, using that magic and like advanced, you know, talking about, I think at one point I talked about, you know, a haberdashery or like a enchanting hats so that like they show off specific features of your face and they have like, you know, a little bit of illusion magic built in, so they like emphasize or de-emphasize parts that of like your physical features that you want to either bring to the fore or like make people ignore. And so
Right.
like if you have a haberdashery and you're trying to learn how to like enchant your stuff, or like how to like make your ever never ending thread so you never run out of thread and you never have to worry about buying more string like stuff for like your
how to go from wool to yarn. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and this is actually on the table is marked as a limited item, which I find very interesting because that actually in itself kind of seeds a bit of story, which is like, well, if the city is funding this school, this, we'll call it a day school because that's really what it is. It's like a, like you said, a 101 series school that's teaching people crafts through like arcane arts. They're only going to teach people what they want. They're only going to offer the classes that they want people to know, which means that they're not going to be teaching like how to scry your skull or your soul onto a skull. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to be a class. They're gonna do things like how to make, you know, how to dip your own candles for Magic 101. So that's very interesting. So that's a really neat way to look at limited, because it's not limited in that somebody is restricting you necessarily. They are curating what the local population uses as magic, which I think is a very different kind of political move.
Exactly. Yes.
And they're doing it through education, which means you know they're evil. All right, I say we get one more. Hopefully my roll comes up on the restricted, because I'd like to have maybe one of each, because I think that's a nice spread. We get a little of everything, but we'll see.
Well, you can just roll if you want to just roll a 1d10 and make sure it's on the restricted table.
That's right. I can do that because you designed this table so cool that I can. Okay, I rolled a 5. So a 5 is at the bottom of this page. The magic foundation in the center of the district fountain. Fountain. Thank you. In the center of the district square provides clean water and strangely relaxing meditative sounds. Those who take a short rest in this immediate vicinity find themselves refreshed and ready to take on their next task. Now, my question is, if a city has a fountain, a literal well of like healing water that anybody can use at any time, do they need things like mass medical aid?
Right. Well, and that's part of what, you know, why I put this in the restricted section, because I sort of pictured it as being maybe if you have, you know, your city with the various districts and the various areas where people live, and you have the, you know, high class district, the upper district where the wealthy live, and that's where the square is, and they may discourage people not local to this district from coming to this fountain and taking a rest and utilizing this. So the upper classes may have they gain the benefits of such a thing, but the lower classes may not. And then, you know, that also brings up the issue too of if you have something like plague or something, or, you know, a situation where it would do well for the masses to be able to use this, and you don't allow them to, or do you allow them to?
And now I'm thinking, like, what happens when the well runs dry? Right? Or is it magically powered? And it's like, well, is it being powered, like, say, by our magic generator of whatever? Does that give up? You know, if this is holy water of some kind, or it's being blessed in some way, and so you're just pumping water through, you know, I don't know, a giant machine that has a holy object on the inside of it, does a holy object run out at some point? And then what does the city do? Because they become reliant upon such a system. Do
you have like an order of monks or clerics that specifically maintain this fountain at the center?
We have a group of clerics that maintain this. We do have that.
There you go.
This Order of the Platinum Torch. Maybe at the top of our magical fountain there is a light. I love this idea that it's like ever burning, because people are going to use it 24/7, right? So yeah, I love that there's like an ever burning torch at the top, and the fountain, right, is maintained by the order of the Platinum Torch. Boom. So they do a couple things in town. Maybe they're the bad guys. They also provide the blessed leather that the leather workers like work with. They bless the leather, so all of this their goods come out a little extra. Yeah, I think that is such a cool idea. And I think when I sit down to have this conversation with you, I really thought in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, magic in the city. How do people use magic in the city? But when you start to really kind of tailor in on that idea, this is a fountain, y'all. This bullet point is just a fountain, right? But this fountain gives off magical whatever. And because it's used by everybody, it now becomes part of city planning, city structure. In terms of, do we need medical outposts now? What happens when it runs dry? Like those questions that we were just asking. And it kind of changes the way we look at magic in a city as not just something that everybody can use or cannot use, but kind of a gradient scale, which is like this city has both a prevalent, limited, and restricted magical presence in some way. And some cities may all have restricted ones, or you may choose to only do, but I love this idea that maybe some cities ebb and flow, and how they limit certain things looks like school classes, which is not evil and so giving. They're totally free to the public, right? But they're really limiting what you actually learn. That there's this because all these folks don't want to pick up their trash, they've given the Tinkerers Guild complete prevalence to build these golems that probably more than likely kick back a little bit on them, right? The occasion, a golem eats a cat instead of trash, or like a kid's backpack, things could go really poorly, but they still give them the rights to do that. And then this idea of this magical fountain, I want to know, like, does somebody sponsor it? Are they actually like poisoning people? Like, what is it, a control mechanism?
Well, and the idea of this Tinkerers Guild being in charge of the golems that clean up trash, like, they have an immense amount of power in the city, because if one day they just decide they don't want it anymore, or they want something specific and they're not going to clean up the trash. I mean, there's been places that have had where the trash collectors have gone on strike for better pay or whatever, but like, either you want to make sure this Tinkerers Guild is well paid, because you don't want them to go on strike, because then you're going to have trash in your
or for them to turn the golems against everybody. Worst, like real worst case. Yeah, but you're right. Like, I mean, you think about, if you have a city the size of New York City, your trash situation cannot go unhandled. It can't. And so if you're talking about a really big city, you definitely want your trash. And you're right. I'm actually going to make that note that they hold a lot of power. They hold a lot of unspoken power.
Right.
Because I love that political dynamic there. Which I imagine, like, these clerics are like, oh, we have the platinum torch, and we keep the magical fountain in the middle of town. And the Tinkerers are over here like, well, we have the trash golems.
Sort of like a who runs Bartertown sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who runs who? And I imagine that's
who really runs the city.
A dynamic in a trade town. That is the dynamic, is like, whose business is on top, who trades with who gets the better goods, who gets the best placement. These kind of things are true for like a trade town, and I think that's those are really choice, like, instances of magic in our city that help kind of define it better, which is like, people can use magic, so forth and so on, but the city has these kind of tiny holds on certain places that kind of control and give to make it a really interesting and unique place where everybody might, well, your players are going to get to play, which I think is super cool.
Well, and also like the idea of like the local magic school holding monthly seminars, like if you've taken, the Candle Magic 101, 102, and then like the advanced one, like, are you able to like put a little medallion in your window saying, well, I've completed my training at
Girl Scout badge.
Or you get, you have that sort of leverage to be like, well, I've done all of this training at the local magic school.
Oh, I love that. A credential system.
Yes.
It's like if you've gone through the city's training, not outside training.
Right.
The city's training, you have basically credentials that it's easier to get you a job. People are more likely to trade with you. Oh, I love that. I'm adding that right now before we get off of this call. I love this. I love this so much. Yeah, and that's a really fun idea of like, and a lot of ways that you can use that. A lot of ways that you can use that. Why are you being this way? I don't. Okay, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, maybe they're like special coins or something that you can trade in for favors, city favors. Love that. Okay, saving. I made the mistake of typing all this stuff up the first one, and I forgot to save it before.
Oh no!
And I typed it all up live, and I lost it. Everybody, it's fine. I went back and redid it, but it's never the same. It's just never the same. All right, very cool. So basically, we have outlined kind of what maybe some of the dynamic of the city and how the city controls the people and feeds the trade market, the ecosystem of this place of like craftsmen and guilds. Very interesting. Very cool. I dig it. Now, chat, this is your chance. With just a few minutes left, do you have any remaining questions? I will give you a minute to think while I continue talking with Sarah. What about you? As this book is going into it's been funded, so we know it's coming. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of stretch goals reached. A lot of new stuff coming in, but any thoughts or last minute thoughts you want to leave people with in terms of what you're most excited about, what you want to make sure they check out when they get the book in hand?
Oh gosh, I mean, I can't wait to see the rest of it because I haven't seen all of it yet. So just seeing a lot of the different aspects of it, and I think it will definitely really come in handy for just inspiration and helping build. Even if you just need one or two elements, if you're, stuck, if you're in the middle of homebrewing at City and you're like, oh, I don't know, how to populate this Tinkerer's Guild or whatever, it's this really easy way to either you can go in for inspiration, you can roll for it. And I know I heard Wolfgang talking too about how he wants this to be, this toolbox of, lots of tables and lots of inspiration and information and things like that. And I really think it will be. So I'm excited to see it all together.
Me too.
In one place.
Me too. All right, everybody. That is the time that we have today. I didn't see any more come through, but we had a lot of really great comments. Let's see. Yeah, kind of like why we have cities and parks. Yeah, fountains. Yeah, for places for people to gather. Yeah, staple a trash bag to someone's pack and let the city dispose of your problem. All of golems on the block just start chasing some poor being. I mean, it could be a giant backlash. Or you have to commit to producing so many candles after class. Ooh, I like that, an incentive. You get to take the class for free, but you have to make 20 free candles for the local general store. Yeah, there's I like that. Another mix of trade to make their ecosystem function. As before, everyone's creativity has been fun and scary to witness. As always, we can't just have normal towns. We need to update. That's so funny. Why would we build this book if we just wanted normal towns?
Right.
But I remind everybody, this Kickstarter is out. Campaign Builder Cities and Towns is available on Kickstarter now for you to back. I believe it's still got 30 days or 29 days, so we still have some time. But, the sooner we know what the stretch goals are, the sooner everybody else knows what the stretch goals are, and the more that we usually reach. So make sure you get over there, you back the project. There's a couple new options for us, I believe, including some things with Roll20 this time, the Roll20 VTT. If you back, you kind of automatically get Roll20, which is kind of something that's new. And we're trying some really cool new stuff. And then, of course, you can always come join us back here on Kobold Chats next Wednesday as I interview another one of the writers about this book, about their contributions, and how we're going to use that to continue building on this town that we have already started. If you are new joining us today, thank you so much for being here. Take a moment, hit the follow button so you know the next time that we're live. And if you've joined us again for Kobold Chats because for whatever reason you'd love to come watch us, be cool and creative and scary. Well, we're so glad that you're back, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Same Kobold time, same Kobold channel. Until then, bye, everybody.
Bye.